Hello everyone. So now that we have learned what expressions, equations, coefficients, constants, and variables are, we're going to do a little mini quiz and take a look at some problems on our own and see if we can identify some of the variables, constants, and coefficients. But before we begin, let's remind ourselves of our definitions. So, an expression, remember, is a mathematical phrase of constants and variables brought together by binary operations. Variables are unknown quantities that may change depending on the context of the problem, and a constant is a fixed value or a number on its own or sometimes a letter. For example, in the problem y equals mx plus b, where b would be the constant. And finally, we have a coefficient, which are constants in front of the variables, and an equation, which is an expression with two sides with an equal sign separating the two sides. So as we see from the definition, the difference between an equation and an expression is that an equation has an equal sign that separates two equal signs. So now let's take a look at some equations and see if we can identify the variables, constants, and coefficients. So in the first equation, we have y is equal to 1x plus 2. So as we see, there's a 1 in front of the x, so that lets us know that that is our coefficient. And as we continue to look at the problem, we see that this number stands alone, and we remember from our definition that the constant is a number that always stands alone. So the 2 is our constant, therefore that leaves y and x to be our variables. So we see y and x as our variables and our constant. So now let's take a look at another equation. So we have d is equal to 3r plus 12. So again, the number in front of the r, just like the number in front of the x, will be our coefficient. So that's 3. And then, same like in the last problem, what are our variables? Here was y and x. Here our variables are d and r. So our variables are d and r. And our constant, again, the number that stands alone, which in this equation is 12. Let's take a look at a few more examples. So, in this problem, or equation, we have 5x plus 3 is equal to y. So, the number in front of the x is 5, so that is our coefficient. Now, our variables, again, are the x and the y. And our constant is 3. Let's go ahead and take a look at another example. We have 5r plus 7 is equal to d. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure this out. So, we see that our coefficient is 5. Our variables are d and r. And our constant is 7. So, let's take a look at two more examples. As I show you the problem, go ahead and pause the video and see if you can identify the variables. Here we go. We have 8 plus 3x is equal to y. So as we see, the equations are the same. The only difference is the order in which the numbers are in and the variables and the constants. So go ahead and try to figure this one out. And we see that the coefficient is 3. The variables are x and y. And the constant is 8. So last one here. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can identify the variables, constants, and coefficient. So coefficient is 2. The variables are d and r. And the constant is 9.